Alright, so there's this YouTube and TikTok channel called Midwestern Marx. Oh, sorry, the Midwestern Marx Institute, actually. Abusing the term institute in the same manner PragerU does university. And basically they're grifters pretending to be leftists that spend most of their time calling other people fake leftists.
I don't care how leftist they call themselves.
Half of their content is about how capitalism caused all of the world's problems.
Marx talked a lot about how the amount of sex work went up in England as soon as capitalism became the dominant system, as soon as people needed to sell something in order to get money to survive.
And the other half are foaming at the mouth rants about how no country not aligned with the United States has ever done anything bad. But I found myself getting drawn into their content. Because every time I thought I had found something crazy,
a deliberate war, not just on Russia, but also on Europe,
there would be something even crazier 2 clicks away.
So a good friend of mine recently posted what I thought was a fairly uncontroversial meme.
And I find myself simultaneously fascinated and repulsed by what they have to say. And look, if it was just the fact that these people are screaming crazy things into the void online, then, it wouldn't matter. But I got recommended these guys by somebody I know in real life. And while I'm now grateful to know I shouldn't waste my time valuing that person's opinion, it does frighten me that this stuff convinces people.
That's why China has abolished poverty while 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
China has abolished poverty.
Especially because they've had their TikTok banned multiple times.
I just got my account banned. That's what you get for being against war.
But they still have 250,000 followers. I mean, I guess that's better than their other account that had
350,000 followers.
But given this influence they seemingly have, I think would be worth going over what I was best able to discern their strategy is. Step 1. Make a video about something people are already talking about.
This is a comment under my video about Joe Biden's dog biting more than 10 people.
It doesn't matter if those people are left or right, they're all susceptible to some degree. In fact, it's better if you criticize both liberals and conservatives.
Because I'm neither. I'm a Marxist and I'm here to talk about the truth. I don't give a shit about your little partisan game.
And at this point, you've talked about something they're interested in while distancing yourself from an unpopular political establishment. So now you've established just enough trust that they might not automatically tune out when you say something like,
NATO really provoked this conflict by continually expanding towards Russia's borders. They shouldn't have done that.
And if you hook them on enough of your mid-level crazy ideas, then eventually you can get them believing in your whole ML Patsock worldview. And then there's no limit to what they'll believe.
At the Capitol riots, we had the Falun Gong, Iranian monarchists, as well as Cuban Gusans.
The authoritarianism that the Western Marxist purity fetish condemns is in every instance a necessary component to protect a revolution's sovereignty.
The reason Iran is so demonized in the West is because the majority of their banks and industry are in the hands of the state.
Ah yes, America hates Iran because they nationalized their oil industry. The thing that all major oil exporting countries have done.
I always just thought Stalin made a mistake, that he chose to support Israel without really knowing what was going on in the region. But the decision wasn't actually made by Uncle Joe. It was made by the Soviet Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Oh, I see. It wasn't Stalin, it was just his government. But seriously, Eddie doesn't even bother making up a reason.
The Foreign Ministry had their own reasons for supporting it, which turned out to be bunk or didn't work out in the way they thought they would.
And this makes sense, because he knows if you haven't disregarded him already, you'll believe anything that comes out of his mouth.
People who live in the Baltic states, I stand by my early recommendation. The USSR 2.0 is your only way forward.
And this is probably why a lot of their content caters to conspiracy theories.
I am not telling you what to believe or drawing any conclusions about what happened on September 11th, 2001.
After all, if you're going to convince somebody that the military-industrial complex carries out political assassinations, you might as well start with JFK.
By the way, this was a similar dynamic to the war in Vietnam, which Eisenhower actually started, and which Kennedy inherited. He wanted to end it, and of course he was unable to, and some think he was killed because he wanted to try, and powers that be wouldn't let him. Of course Johnson inherited it.
I love how he throws it into the middle of a list as though it was just common knowledge. This conspiratorial tendency is probably why somebody apparently accused them of working for the FBI.
A couple leftist meme accounts I follow posted this and said I'm backed by the FBI? If I'm backed by the FBI, why poor?
Ah, he's got him there. But in all seriousness, the stuff they say is much more aligned with Russian propaganda.
The Soviet Union? I thought you guys broke up.
Yes, that's what we wanted you to think.
And I'm not saying it is Russian propaganda, I'm just observing that occasionally they bring on guests who happen to work for Russian state propaganda news media and let them espouse their views without being challenged in any way whatsoever.
The NATO has been mostly demilitarized. The British military is pretty much non-existent. The so-called sanctions, I have Russian friends, Russian people that I work with.
Huh, well, I don't have any hard evidence that they're backed by Russia, and I wasn't prepared to make an accusation of this magnitude. But it's worth noting that Uncle Joe Rogan here is himself not an infrequent guest on Russia Today.
Washington will continue to stop at nothing to maintain imperial control, that is, diplomatic, economic, political, and military control of the hemisphere.
So I guess I'll just say this.
There's a lot of implications you can draw from that.
And the conspiracy stuff is probably why they spend so much time bashing liberals and Western leftists.
I don't care how leftist they call themselves and how much they posture in line with what it means to be leftist in the US. They're objectively rightist. They're objectively on the right.
Because they want to keep you isolated from anybody who might make you realize you're being sold a bill of goods.
Stuff like this shows to me why liberals are the same as conservatives.
It's so freaking stupid, but this is the Western left.
If there is a common thread found in the Western Marxist tradition, it is its unwavering rejection of socialist experiments, especially those led by communist parties. In the 1990s, following the overthrow of the Soviet Union, Michael Parenti had labeled them...
Don't worry, Parenti, I'll be getting to you next. And I want to make it clear at this point that even though they have Marx in the name, they don't represent other leftists or even other Marxists. Part of the grift is to make you think that they do. And this is originally where I was going to end the video, concluding that their adoption of ideas is utilitarian, meant to draw in people who feel alienated by modern politics, and keep them insulated in what's effectively a political cult. But that's when I discovered they have a party now. You can tell it's official because they made a trailer for it? And like all good political messaging from a party, it tells you almost nothing about them. Okay, as you can see, it's not just them behind it, but... wait, who are those other names? Oh, of course, they're actually in bed with the MAGA communism people. Why wouldn't they be? And if you want the clearest piece of evidence that these guys are grifters, then just look at some of their career trajectories. A few years ago, Garland Nixon used to be a liberal punching bag for Fox News.
It's factually untrue to say he's a racist because I know him. Okay, you heard Garland says, he's a racist.
Bigot.
Oh, bigot. It's not all encompassing enough. Go ahead.
Now, Mr. Nixon, please don't try to talk over me, which is what liberals do.
But now he's spouting grand predictions of the collapse of the global imperialist system. Jackson Hinkle was a DSA candidate for city council. And now he's the proprietor of MAGA communism. This pattern is what I want to call the Dave Rubin arc. One of these people start off getting some attention as a moderate, bland media personality, but then they realize there's much more attention to be gained if they adopt more extreme positions. And since they started out relatively inoffensive, they can paint their gradual change of heart as evidence for the irrefutability of whatever ideology they're defending today. Since after all, they had gotten there starting with the mainstream political orthodoxy, which theoretically should have made them much more hesitant to adopt extreme positions. And then when their content is taken down or their account is banned, they cry censorship. Even though it's probably a case of social media companies for once doing their job and scrubbing misinformation from their site. But they love to paint it as persecution. I'd love to see some of the stuff that's been taken down from Midwestern Marx's accounts, but it's been taken down, and probably for good reason. So just keep in mind, all these clips I've been showing you, it's not even the craziest stuff they've said, because all that stuff is gone from their social media. Please, for the love of God, don't fall for these people's BS. All they want is your attention and sometimes your money. And while that's more or less true of all media personalities, I'm of the firm opinion that these ones don't believe a word they are saying. But they just act so annoyingly self-serious that it drove me to make this YouTube video about them. And if you're about to leave a YouTube comment criticizing me using the terms so-called, revisionist, or ahistorical, then don't bother.
I'm against the commodification of human sexuality for profit.
It's pretty funny that any of them would be against sex work given how much they love jerking themselves off on camera. But seriously, the way they talk about themselves, it's like they consider themselves the second coming of Christ.
The vast majority of those who have been censored over the last few years have been attacked and maligned precisely because of their challenges to the imperialist narratives.
We're the only ones that really threaten fascists.
If you condemn the work that the ACP does, that the Institute does, that Infrared does, that Jackson Hinkle does, if you condemn their work at such a sensitive conjuncture, such as the one that we're in, you are indirectly serving the forces of hegemony. You can put as many pronouns as you want on your Twitter profile. You can put as many pride flags as you want on your Twitter profile. You can call yourself as leftist as you want.
Every single YouTube channel like this one that educates people here and wakes people up is important as any book that Lenin or Marx ever wrote. I really believe that.
Hey, so thanks for watching the video. As you may or may not know, this is only my second YouTube video, but I was really grateful to see that some people enjoyed the first one. It blew up a lot more than I expected, probably because it was a response to a really popular video, so this one might not do as well, but 170 subscribers after one video is not something I was expecting. There's more content coming soon. I teased the next video pretty subtly in this. See if you can spot it. There will be more video game stuff eventually too, just for those of you who subscribe to that. And yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for subscribing and for all the positive messages. If you guys have any suggestions for what you want to see from this channel, leave it in the comments. Any feedback, any compliments, any criticisms, I'd love to see those too. See you guys next video.
You literally sound like Putin. That is Putin propaganda.